What's up, guys? Welcome to Daily Dose of Reddit. This is your host, Zach, and today's subreddit is r/PettyRevenge. Alright, this story's called, Ever Wonder Why I Mow My Lawn Whenever You're Having a Garden Party? Now, we all like the occasional garden party with noise. However, my neighbor seems to be an entertainer. That is, every weekend evening, they like to host a party, often in the garden, and have friends and several families with kids over. This family and their guests, rather than have civilized discussions, like to shout over each other, and generally whoever shouts the loudest gets to talk for a while, let alone the kids who start screaming for attention. I used to let this go at first, but after a whole summer of them being louder than my TV or stereo in my own home, I had to do something about it. So now I wait until they serve up the food and everyone gets plated up, before I crank up the lawnmower and drown them out so they can no longer hear each other and they scuttle off inside, having to carry everything in and relay the table. Sometimes they come out after I'm done and set up and continue. It just so happens that I find a bush or a tree that needs tending to with the hedge trimmer. Petty as hell, but it makes me feel better. I mean, that's good and all, but you can complain to them or something. You can speak up, maybe that'll work. Maybe not, but good revenge. Nice. This story's called, Don't Wake Everyone Up at 4 a.m. So I've been camping this weekend, and a site right behind us has a wonderful family of 4 to 6 kids, and their wonderful mother we call Methany. During the day, she's just loud and obnoxious and constantly coughing when she's not got a cigarette in her mouth. But it's camping, who cares? Quiet hours are from 9 p.m. to 7 a.m. Cool. Everyone seems to abide by it in every site around us, except Methany. She is quiet at about 10, and we are like, sweet, she's done being obnoxious. Until 4 a.m. Then she just goes bonkers, yelling at one of her crotch goblins or her boyfriend. I don't know, just the loudest, get the F back in the tent, shut the F up, I told you to shut the F up, for an hour. Just her screaming and coughing and screaming more. So at 7 a.m., I made sure my kid and niece and nephew got as close to their side as they could and just start squealing while playing. Methany could be heard complaining that she is trying to sleep, but her loss. She did it again last night, so first thing at 7 a.m., the kids' chorus started. It gave her one hell of a crap-eating grin when she stomped out of her tent. She looks more miserable than normal, and I love it. Ha! Serves her right. This story's called Beach Party Revenge. For some background, I live about 20 minutes from the beach, and I'm a server at a busy, high-stress restaurant in a tourist town. After a really stressful Saturday night, getting mistreated by drunk tourists during a 12-hour shift, I decided I wanted to go sit quietly on the beach to relax and unwind. It was about 1 a.m. I do this fairly often after work, and the beach is always really quiet and peaceful. I get to the beach, it's seemingly empty, so I find my usual spot and go through my routine of opening a beer and lighting a joint. That's when I notice the ruckus down the beach a little ways from me. It's a group of drunk teenagers on vacation, about 10 of them, girls and guys. I ignore them and hope they keep their distance. They didn't. Instead, they come up and start pointing their flashlights in my face and asking if they can have a beer or hit of the joint I'm smoking. I ask them nicely to leave me alone. They say they'll leave me alone if I give them what they want and start settling in around me, like I've invited them to my private relaxation party. At this point, I'm about to lose my crap and kill each of them with my bare hands. It's been a rough night, so I gather up all my stuff and go to leave. They're heckling me the entire time I'm walking away. I get to the end of the boardwalk that goes over the dunes and notice all these obnoxious teenagers have left their shoes sitting there. So I take one shoe from each pair and toss them along the thick, thorny bushes next to my car and drive home with a big smile on my face. I wish I could have watched them come back to discover that all their left shoes were gone. I guess you really shooed them away. Haha. This story's called Car Problems Suck, especially if you piss off someone creative. I served in the Marine Corps for 4 years during the Iraq-Afghan wars. I had a cushy job at the division level, in an admin unit. Things were great for the first year I was there. Then Fishy, not her real name, came back from a 45-day deployment. She was sent over to finish off the deployment of another female Marine who had gotten pregnant. Fishy went over as an E3 and came back as an E4 with a combat meritorious promotion. It was common knowledge that she earned her promotion on her knees with a few officers, but that's beside the point. As an E4, she had a modicum of power over anyone lower rank, and she was a vindictive bimbo. She immediately singled me out of our units because I used to give her crap when we were the same rank. Suddenly, I had all sorts of extra duties, white glove inspections of my barracks room, and the worst was she argued against me taking leave to visit home. Based on her report of my non-existent failures as a Marine, I had my leave denied, and I began to plot my revenge. We had a 4-day holiday weekend coming up, and Fishy made it known that she was driving from Cali to Arizona to meet a guy that she had met online. She was taking off right after work ended, and had her car loaded up and ready to go. Knowing that she always gave me crap details, I waited to the last hour of the day before the long weekend, when she informed me that I had to go to police call, pick up trash, the parade ground that was between our building and our meager parking spots. As I did, I meandered over to her car and put a tiny pebble inside each of her valve stem caps on her tires. Tightened just enough to barely hear a hiss of leaking air, but not so fast as it would be noticeable. Quitting time came and she ran out, jumped into her car, and took off. I walked to my barracks and laughed my ass off. She never made it to Arizona that weekend, as she was stuck in Southern California traffic on the freeway with 4 flats about halfway to San Diego. Jeez, that's honestly pro-revenge, if we're, in my opinion, because that sounds like a terrible situation to be in. This story's called How I Failed to Iron to the Specified Standard Over a Significant Period of Time. So having put the cat amongst the pigeons with my post on my China choices for tea, I thought I'd share another of my petty revenges with my husband. This one happened when we have only been together for a few months. Background: I hate ironing. I see it as something that is an ordeal that should be avoided at all costs. I have always hung things on coat hangers to dry so that I have to iron them, or don't have to, I'm assuming. Hubby hates ironing. He was in the forces, both Army and Air Force, and has given himself a very high standard for ironing. Story: Hubby and I had been living together for about 2 weeks when this happened, 3 years before we married. Hubby asked me, before I was working part-time, if I would iron his shirts and hankies for him. I expressed that this was, in my opinion, the task from hell, and that whilst I loved him very much, this was a surefire way to end our relationship. Hubby begged me to do it as he was shift working and was very tired after shifts and traveling to and from work, whilst I worked literally 5 minutes away and worked 3 days a week. He would do all the washing on his off days if I would do the ironing. Would I just give him a 3-month trial? I was talking about this to my mom, who I knew hated ironing as much as I did. She said that after my father told her that she didn't iron properly when they were first married, at this time 45 years earlier, she had put tram lines up his shirt sleeves ever after. So I ironed hubby's shirts, trousers, and hankies relentlessly for 3 months, putting the most horrid extra folds in places you wouldn't think you could put folds into. After 3 months, he came to me in absolute frustration and said that I was right. I had no ability to iron a shirt, and there was no point in me doing it anymore. So, could we swap? I would do the laundry and he would iron? I grudgingly agreed. Aftermath. About 7 or 8 years later, my mom let it slip to my husband about the tramline ironing. Hubby said that he had hoped I was sabotaging his ironing rather than I was really that incompetent. He also admitted to me and my mom that actually the real reason that he hated ironing was because he didn't iron to his own standards. Oh, and he irons all my t-shirts because he hates that I don't think it's necessary and they annoy him. I never asked for that, he just does it. I happily repay by washing all the clothes and folding up the clean clothes and putting them away. He is very happy with the situation. Okay, well that's good. Cute story. How my dad's girlfriend destroyed some jerks at 7-Eleven. Obviously, this isn't my story, but this is the only story I have. My state is in lockdown, which is why I wasn't there with her. I was also going to refer to her as Linda for convenience sake. So Linda went to 7-Eleven with me, my brother, my dad, and herself, Slushies naturally. This means that she has quite a few to fill. She walks on in and starts filling up the Slushies. That's when it happens. They appear. The gang of entitled kids and their mother. They start muttering, "What's taking so long? Why do you need that many?" Stuff like that. Linda turns around and politely says, "I'm just getting these for my family. I'll be done soon." They continue muttering and rolling their eyes while their mother does nothing about it. Cue the revenge. Yours truly had asked for a mix of raspberry and Coke while everyone else just wanted raspberry. Now, Linda had heard these jerks asking their mother for Coke slushies. Linda decided to be very generous with my slushie, and now there was no Coke left. Oh no! Linda drove home and told us this story while I enjoyed my very tasty slushie. I would also like to add that in my state, only one person from each family should be at the shop, so they were breaking quarantine as well. Hopefully this will teach them a well-deserved lesson. Okay, now I'm just thinking about slushies, you jerk. This story's called Shouldn't Have Cut Me Off. One of the things I hate most, especially when shopping, is when people choose to deliberately cut you off or stand in your way. This happened the other day to me. I'm heading to the supermarket. I walk into the shopping center and I have to literally start walking backwards to the travelator because of a couple of idiots with children who chose that moment to block the top of the travelator. No matter, I eventually squeeze past them to get off the travelator and they give me a foul look. I do my other shopping and then head to the supermarket. I got to grab a trolley when guess who decides to push in front to grab a trolley? You guessed it. The idiots and their children. I go to the produce section and go to grab a bag to put some apples in. The bags are in front of the pears, and guess who decides to stop and stand right in front of the bags? You guessed it, the idiots and their children. I say excuse me several times and they just look at me with disdain. So now for the revenge. By this point I was getting really annoyed, wondering whether it was a coincidence each time or whether they were deliberately targeting me. Then I heard them in the next aisle. Husband says to wife, "Before we forget, we better grab X product. It's the only store in the city that has any stock left." Now I knew what this product was, used it a few times in the past, and knew that the manufacturer had stopped making it. I was already in the correct aisle, so I hurried down and grabbed everything that was on the shelf, about 8 packets. I asked a staff member in the aisle whether they had any more out the back, which they did, and got all of that as well. I then headed towards the registers. I was just about done and happened to pass the idiots and their children just after they were told they had sold out. The grin I had on my face as I passed them. That's a good one. What if it actually turned out to be vital to their survival and you just killed them? Wouldn't that have been funny? Petty revenge for the win, am I right, guys? This story's called How I Get Petty Revenge on My Husband. Background. I love my husband and he loves me, but every so often we get on each other's nerves, and more so being stuck with each other through lockdown. Now, I'm a fan of Agatha Christie and love her use of poisons in her books. Story. I love to cook, so I cook and he is in charge of clearing up and loading and unloading the dishwasher. When we have one of our petty arguments, I get my very petty revenge by carefully choosing one of my plates that has a toxic plant on it and serving his dinner on it. I personally enjoy using the foxglove plate, which he now considers to be his plate as I've used it so much. Edited to add in plate for clarity and to point out that I'm British, so passive-aggressive revenge is hardwired into my genes. Update edit. Well, whilst it seems that we have managed to share a number of passive-aggressive ways to get our own back on our partners, there have been a couple of people who think my behavior shows toxic tendencies. Not sure what they would think of the comment my husband made to a letting agent when she asked why we were moving from a flat to a house. Well, I need a garden in case I need to bury a body. Actually, I have discussed my plate choices with my therapist, and she thought it was very funny. If I get angry, doing something really petty but not obvious will get it out of my system by laughing at myself, and the situation is a good way to deal with things. It's a great way to deal with anxiety. There is no real issue between my husband and myself, and we have a great dialogue. However, when you are cooped up with someone 24/7 for 6 months, little things annoy you. This way, I get to vent my thoughts and put everything into perspective. I have qualifications in counseling, NLP, and CBT, so I know exactly what I'm doing and why I do it. I don't blame my parents for any of my behaviors. They are mine, and I own them. I know their origin and have been raised by a very narcissistic parent. I strive to be a better person. As I said at the start, this is a very petty revenge, and in its way, very passive-aggressive and British. To those of you who enjoyed my post, have a great day. To those who need to have an argument over my behavior, I'm sorry that your life is so boring you have to look for an argument where there isn't one to be had. This is what it is. My very petty revenge. I hate how she had to defend herself. It's harmless. It's cute, it's funny, and it's obviously, there are way worse things she could do if she's annoyed over something. Like, come on, people. Stop being so sensitive. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and hit that bell to never miss an episode.